crash site was a wound in the rust-red desert of Xyos, a jagged gash of twisted metal and scorched earth beneath the endless bruised sky. My designation is Kalin 7, a Xenolinguist and cultural attache for the United Earth Confederacy. For 6 standard months I had been stationed at a remote observation post, tasked with studying the Zarvin from a safe distance. They were a race of hulking bipedal reptilians, their hides a mosaic of emerald and obsidian scales. According to every report filed in the last decade, they were mindlessly aggressive, a warrior race driven by a single purpose: conquest. The downed ship was a Zarvin scout vessel, brutally efficient in design, all sharp angles and dark metal. It lay half-buried in the ochre sand, emergency flares still sputtering crimson light into the fading dusk. My orders were clear: observe, record, and under no circumstances engage. Make contact and you become a target. Still, I crept closer, my environmental suit hissing softly as my heart hammered against my ribs. The hiss of escaping gas from the ship's ruptured hull sounded like a serpent's warning. Through a jagged tear in the metal I saw movement. A massive form slumped over a control console that sparked and whined with dying energy. It was a Zarvin warrior. His name, I would later learn, was Xyler. Even injured, he was a terrifying sight. Easily 8 feet tall, his muscular frame clad in dark, form-fitting battle armor. One of his powerful arms hung at a strange, broken angle, and the crest of sharp bone frills that normally flared in aggression lay flat against his skull. As I watched, he let out a low guttural sound. It wasn't a roar of rage. It was a sound of pure, primal despair. Then I noticed the second form in the cockpit, a smaller Zarvin, its scales a softer shade of green. It lay motionless against the far wall, a pool of dark, viscous blood spreading beneath it. The warrior, Xyler, reached out with his good arm and gently, so gently it seemed impossible for a creature of his size and reputation, touched the smaller one's face. He spoke in his language, a series of clicks, hisses, and deep vibrations. My helmet's universal translator, primed with months of passive audio observation, struggled to interpret the words, but it caught enough. Little one, forgive me. Father failed. The word father was unmistakable. And the little one, this wasn't a warrior. This was a child. My training, my orders, every survival instinct I possessed screamed at me to retreat, to file my report, to let the desert claim them both. But the scientist in me, the linguist, the human being, was transfixed. This was not the monster of Confederate propaganda. This was a grieving father. I don't know what compelled me. Perhaps it was the profound loneliness of my post, or the raw, universal nature of his grief. I unclamped my medkit from my belt, took a deep breath, and stepped through the torn hull. The warrior's head snapped toward me. His eyes, which I had only ever seen depicted as cold reptilian slits, were wide, the pupils dilated. They were the color of molten gold, and in them I saw not rage but desperate fear. He shifted his massive body to shield the child from me, a low, threatening growl rumbling from his chest. I raised my empty hands, hoping the gesture of peace was universal. Slowly, deliberately, I placed my medkit on the floor and slid it toward him with my foot. I pointed to his broken arm, then to the child. "I can help," I said, my voice sounding impossibly small inside the wrecked cockpit. The translator clipped to my belt hissed and crackled as it attempted to convert my words. It butchered them badly, producing something closer to, "I offer mending." He stared at me without blinking. The growling faded, replaced by a heavy silence. He looked at me, then at the medkit, and finally at the child. Slowly, very slowly, the desperate fear in his eyes shifted into something else, a fragile sliver of hope. For the next hour, an unspoken truce existed inside that broken starship. Xyler allowed me to approach, though he watched my every movement with an intensity one could physically feel pressing against my skin. I worked on the child first. A piece of shrapnel had pierced his side. The wound was severe. My human medkit was woefully inadequate for Zarvin physiology, but I could at least stop the bleeding, apply a clotting agent, and dress the wound. The child, a male named Ren, remained unconscious, but his breathing steadied. Then I turned to Xyler. His arm was a clean break of the radius bone. He flinched when I touched him, his scales surprisingly warm and smooth. I set the bone as carefully as I could, using a splint from the medkit and strips of cloth torn from my own emergency blanket. He never made a sound, though a faint tremor ran through his powerful frame. When I finished, I sat back, exhausted. Xyler looked at his splinted arm, then at his son, and finally at me. He spoke in a deep, resonant voice. This time the translator worked better, having had time to adjust to his vocal patterns. "You are a healer," he said. "The humans we have fought, they only bring fire. We bring many things," I replied carefully. "Fire is just one of them. What happened here?" He looked away, his gaze falling upon his child. My stomach lurched. For a moment I thought he believed Ren was dead. But the boy's chest still rose and fell. Xyler's grief was for what almost happened. We fled, he whispered. The war. It is not what we are told. The elders speak of glory, of claiming new worlds for the Zarvin race. They do not speak of the ash, the silence of the dead, the look in the eyes of those who burn. He paused before continuing. I have a mate. She is gentle. She sings to our hatchlings when the twin moons rise. I could not let Ren be forged into a weapon as I was. I stole a scout ship. I searched for a quiet world, far from the war. He gestured weakly toward the endless desert outside. This was not it. The storm, he continued quietly. It was like nothing I have ever flown through. It tore us from the sky. For the first time, I saw the full weight he carried. Not the weight of armor or weapons, but the burden of a lifetime forced into violence. You are the first being I have spoken to in all my cycles who has not looked at me and seen only a weapon, he said. I didn't know what to say. I was a scientist trained to observe, not to comfort. But I understood what he meant. On Earth, we do the same thing. We turn our enemies into monsters so it becomes easier to kill them. We erase their families, their fears, their dreams, until they become nothing more than a faceless enemy. The Zarvin had always been our enemy. But here, inside a dying ship beneath an alien sky, there was no enemy. There was only a father afraid for his son. My name is Kalin, I said, extending my hand, palm up, the universal sign that I carried no weapon. He stared at my hand for a long time. Then slowly, carefully, he extended his own. His 3 clawed fingers touched my palm, tentative and gentle. His skin felt like warm, ridged leather. I am Xyler, he said. The hours that followed became a quiet exchange between 2 strangers from different worlds. I told him about Earth, its green forests and blue oceans. He told me about Zarvin Prime, about crystal caverns where light shattered into 1,000 colors, and about his mate Sela taking their hatchlings there to sing. He showed me how to adjust the environmental controls of his suit to make Ren more comfortable. I shared my limited rations of water and nutrient paste. We were 2 castaways in a sea of red sand, connected by a fragile thread of understanding. He was not the monster our reports described. He was an artist, a father, a husband, someone forced to live in a culture that demanded violence. He even showed me sketches on his data slate, drawings of his family rendered with delicate care. It was one of the most intimate things I had ever witnessed. As the first of Xyos' twin moons began to rise, casting long shadows across the desert, Ren finally stirred. His eyes opened slowly. They were the same molten gold as his father's. He looked at me, an unfamiliar alien in a white suit, and let out a weak, frightened chirp. Xyler was beside him instantly, his voice soft and soothing as he gently stroked Ren's snout. Then he looked at me. The gratitude in his eyes was almost overwhelming. Slowly, stiffly, he rose to his feet and stepped toward me. He towered over me like a living mountain of scales and muscle. Yet I wasn't afraid. He looked down at me, his gaze steady and clear, and in the common tongue he spoke the words my translator had taught him. You are the only one who truly understands me, human. He placed his 3-clawed hand gently on my shoulder. His touch was warm and firm, filled with meaning, gratitude, trust, and something close to friendship. He glanced at his son, now resting peacefully, and released a long, rattling breath. His shoulders finally relaxed. His mission was complete. His son was safe. And in that quiet moment beneath the twin moons of a lonely alien world, I understood something profound about our universe. We spend so much time building walls between us, defining ourselves by our differences, that we forget the forces that unite all living beings. Love, fear, hope, and the desperate instinct to protect our children. Xyler was not my enemy. He was my mirror. I looked into the weary peace in his golden eyes and realized what I had to do next. I had to get them home. Please follow my channel for more videos. One click from you can change my life.